When a sports league reaches the marble halls of the United States Congress, you know a line has been crossed. What began as a game played on polished hardwood floors has erupted into a national political battleground. This is no longer just about basketball, stat sheets, or championship rings. This is a story of unprecedented culture wars, federal inquiries, emergency security briefings, and an intense ideological divide that has captivated and polarized the entire nation. To understand how we arrived at this explosive moment, you have to go back to the arrival of Caitlin Clark. Long before she stepped foot onto a professional court, Clark had already reshaped the landscape of women's sports. Breaking historic collegiate scoring records, filling arenas across the country, and driving television ratings to heights usually reserved for the NFL, she entered the WNBA with an unprecedented wave of momentum. Multi-million-dollar endorsement deals, including a landmark contract with Nike, turned her into a global phenomenon before playing a single minute in the Pro League. For a league that had spent nearly 3 decades fighting for mainstream visibility and fair economic compensation, Clark's arrival brought a tidal wave of new revenue, charter flights, and massive media contracts. But alongside that tide came an undeniable undertone of friction. For years, veteran players had carried the WNBA through financial uncertainty, playing in near obscurity and sacrificing their bodies overseas during the off-season. Now, a rookie was arriving with all the spotlight, all the money, and the full weight of corporate media behind her. The stage was set for a collision, but nobody predicted just how volatile that collision would become. The spark that ignited the bonfire occurred during an early season matchup between the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky. In the heat of competition, during a dead ball play away from the action, Chicago Sky guard Chennedy Carter delivered a hard, physical shoulder check that sent Caitlin Clark crashing violently to the hardwood. On the Chicago bench, star rookie Angel Reese stood up and cheered. On the court, the play was ruled a common foul. In the post-game press conference, Carter refused to answer questions about Clark, declaring simply that she had no interest in addressing the rookie. If this had been any other league or any other era, the hit might have been analyzed for a day on highlight reels and forgotten. But in the hypercharged environment surrounding the WNBA, the video went viral within minutes. Social media exploded. Millions of casual fans, political commentators, and traditional sports analysts watched the clip, debating whether the play was a tough basketball welcome or a targeted, malicious hit born out of resentment. Within 48 hours, the incident transcended sports television and reached the center of American politics. In an unprecedented move, Congressman Jim Banks of Indiana, alongside 10 other United States lawmakers, officially stepped into the arena. They drafted and dispatched a formal letter to WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, expressing deep concern over player safety and demanding an official investigation. The lawmakers raised pointed questions, asking whether the league was turning a blind eye to targeted physical aggression against its biggest star. They openly questioned if there were racial and cultural undertones behind the hostility, suggesting that the WNBA had an obligation to protect the athlete who was single-handedly driving the league's economic boom. For the first time in modern sports history, members of the United States Congress were openly questioning the governance, refereeing, and ethics of a professional women's sports organization. The congressional letter threw gasoline onto an already roaring fire. National news networks seized upon the story. On ESPN's First Take, commentators Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharpe engaged in heated debates over the underlying dynamics of the league. Political outlets like Fox News and CNN ran daily segments analyzing the situation, framing the feud between Caitlin Clark and her rivals as a microcosm of America's broader racial, social, and political divisions. As television networks generated millions of views from the debate, the human costs behind the outrage began to surface. The internet quickly transformed into a toxic battleground. Online harassment reached alarming levels, with bad actors sending vile, racist abuse and credible death threats to players on both sides of the rivalry. Players who had spent years advocating for unity and equality were now finding their inbox filled with hatred and hostility. Inside WNBA headquarters, the crisis reached a tipping point. Commissioner Cathy Engelbert, and the Women's National Basketball Players Association were forced to call high-level emergency security meetings. The league had to immediately upgrade security protocols, hiring private security details for players, increasing law enforcement presence at arenas, and re-evaluating hotel and travel logistics across the country. Behind locker room doors, a quiet divide began to form. Veteran players felt deeply vilified by new fans who accused them of jealousy and hostility toward the rookie who was filling their arenas. Meanwhile, new fans claimed that established players were actively sabotaging the very figure who was elevating their salaries and bringing unprecedented wealth to the sport. The league was experiencing record-breaking growth, but it was growing under the weight of immense internal and external pressure. In the middle of this storm stood a 22-year-old rookie. Every move Caitlin Clark made was dissected by millions. Political commentators wanted her to speak out. Critics wanted her to break down. Fans wanted her to carry the league on her shoulders. Surrounded by armed security guards, stepping through packed hotel lobbies, and facing deafening media circuses in every city, the pressure was unlike anything ever seen in women's athletic history. Instead of entering the political fray, Clark made a deliberate choice. She refused to comment on lawmakers, she stayed off social media, and she ignored the external noise. She understood that the ultimate answer couldn't be spoken at a microphone or typed on a screen. It had to be delivered on the floor. The moment of truth arrived in a high-stakes rematch that drew millions of viewers. As the arena lights flared and the noise reached a fever pitch, Clark delivered a masterclass in basketball brilliance. From the opening tip, she controlled every single possession with surgical precision. Stepping back behind the arc, pulling up from logo distance, and threading impossible passes through double teams, she dismantled the opposing defense bit by bit. When the final buzzer sounded, the stat sheet told a story that resonated across the entire sporting landscape. 45 points. 10 assists. Historical shooting percentages that shattered single-game record books. It was not just a victory on the scoreboard, it was a cold, decisive statement to the entire world. In the face of intense political crossfire, relentless physical play, and national scrutiny, greatness had spoken. The fallout from this era has forever altered the trajectory of the WNBA. The ratings are higher than ever, the arenas remain sold out, and the financial trajectory of women's sports has been elevated to a point of no return. But the lessons of this moment remain clear. When sports, culture, and politics collide, the noise outside can become deafening. Yet inside the lines, the game always belongs to those who possess the skill, the resilience, and the heart to conquer the storm. Here at True WNBA Stories, we don't just show you the highlights or repeat the headlines. We take you behind the curtain to uncover the real politics, the intense rivalries, and the untold stories that define the game. If you want the deepest, most authentic analysis of women's basketball, subscribe to True WNBA Stories right now and turn on all notifications. The story is just getting started.